Hey, it's Tara. I am a psychotherapist, advanced self-regulation therapy practitioner. I'm a parent. I work with trauma. I'm a resilience expert. I speak all over the continent on how to regulate your nervous system so that you can have improved health and well-being, improved focus and productivity, reduced incidence of mental health illness and physical health complaints related to an activated nervous system. This is a time when we are all charged up. We are all more in a fight or flight set of circumstances than normal, and we were never created for that. We were never created to be surveilling for threat on a constant basis. So we are all elevated a little bit. You might notice that you aren't sleeping as well, that you don't feel as regulated with your thoughts and emotions, that you don't feel as in control of your focus. You might feel more irritable. You might feel like you're fighting with people more, that relationships are different, that you're afraid of people and germs and new things and experiences. And so if as adults, we are experiencing these symptoms, think of how kids who are watching us, but not just watching, templating off of us, are experiencing this also. Remember, 85% of what we do is governed by an unconscious mind. This means that a lot of what we do is driven by unconscious patterns and frames of reference and things from our past that have shaped us to be who we are today, but they don't necessarily serve us now. And if we don't know what's governing us and moving us forward, and those decisions that are being made that we rationalize with our thinking brain, that we respond to with our emotional brain, we're really not in control of our own experience. And the problem with that is when you work with children as a parent or as an educator, they have mirror neurons that are bouncing and templating and developing their brains off of how you present. So it's a huge responsibility. If I were a teacher, what I would be doing going back to school right now, whether I've started, whether I'm preparing to start, whether I'm preparing to restart, I would be focusing on my own health first. I would become very selfish in the best way that selfish means to me, to self-honor what I needed in the moments that I need it in. I would look at getting extra sleep and pushing things aside, because teachers, like therapists, like frontline healthcare workers, like a lot of these professions with high levels of burnout, typically tend to be the people that do too much. We also typically tend to be the people that brag about doing so much, and there's no reward, there's no trophy for us doing too much right now. What it will do is compromise our own sense of mental and emotional wellness, but also our physical health and well-being and our immune system. So if I was a teacher going out into those situations every day, I would be taking impeccable care of myself. So I would be getting extra sleep. I would be making sure I exercise in a healthy way every day. I would be outside in nature, breathing in fresh air, being mindful of my body in stillness, in space, out in that sunshine as much as possible. I would be picking up meditation. If you don't already do it, you should be. It's science proven that it changes your brain and it helps regulate your nervous system. I'd probably be picking up some apps like Heart Math, which helps you through your phone even direct your attention to help regulate your nervous system, to help calm your system down. A regulated nervous system is just robust in that it can respond to events as they happen in life to the direct proportion that's required for the appropriate amount of time, and then it can come back down to a healthy baseline. So this flow is what we're looking for. What we're seeing is people are kind of getting stuck here. There's not a lot of room in your container to deal with the daily events of kids in school if you're already charged up. So I would be doing things every day to support overall mental health and well-being and physiological health and well-being, because they're both so intimately connected that we cannot separate them. So one depends on the other. I'd be focusing on reducing the level of inflammation in my body, making sure I reduced as many other risks as possible, and really researching the things that I could do to bolster my immune system, my overall functioning in the world. I'm doing that anyway. If I was a teacher, I would be putting a lot of focus on taking really good care of myself, really nourishing myself with practices and hobbies and situations that don't have anything to do with a pandemic and that don't have anything to do with my job. The other things I'd be doing is really setting up my day in a very strategic way. I would be really smart about this, where I'm not just flinging myself into the day, which I've been doing all summer long. I'm not flinging myself into the day and then trying to get through it. I would be being very specific with having a media ban. I wouldn't be following case numbers per the day. I would check in to know what I need to know when I need to know it, and that's it. I think it's important to be informed about the data that is in your region, not looking anywhere else, looking at the data in your region, and not the data that's fed to you, but the actual raw data of percentages, recoveries, things like that, to spin it so that you're still looking at the raw data, but you're flipping the script about it. Like, what's the best case scenario here? Where I live and in Canada in general, our numbers are remarkably positive. So focus on those things if you need that information at all. Outside of putting a bit of a media ban and a social media ban on my framework for the day, I would start each day with some kind of mindfulness or meditation practice, a walking meditation, something to get my physiology in the right framework. The fastest way to change your mental, emotional state is through your body. So I would start the day, even a 10-minute walk in the sunshine, really intentionally thinking about how you want the day to go. Instead of, we tend to not build in enough time. We're rushing out to our jobs and we're kind of throwing ourselves into it with a lot of activation. And activation, you'll notice, because your heart rate is elevated, your breathing is shallow, you kind of feel like this, you talk really quickly. If you looked at somebody, their pupils would be different, their facial expressions would be different. They wouldn't really take a breath. The pace of everything is too ramped up. So I would be slowing it down. I'd be weaving in some of these really healthy principles to help balance my nervous system. I would also really be using my imagination and visualization at this point. Before I left my house, I would imagine the perfect day. So the kicker is, most of us are too grounded in reality and we try and accommodate through reality. The nervous system doesn't care. The nervous system doesn't care if it's past, present, or future, if it's real or imaginary. You can direct your mind into any of those situations and your brain will respond by lighting up as if that's actually happening in this moment. It will release neurochemicals and a whole host of physiological reactions as if it's actually happening. So knowing that, it means that you can manipulate your state far more than what we're all probably aware of, which means, how do I want to go into each day? I want to be calm. I want to be optimistic. I want to feel like I take up this much space in a room. So I'm going to imagine myself as maybe a happy Buddha, really big and robust and grounded and having enough space and taking up enough space. Often when there's tension and trauma and anxiety, we shrink our lives to be able to feel like we have some control and we can cope, when what we need to do is expand. How much room, if I was feeling my best, would I actually take up? So we can use that. We're physically distancing right now. Well, how much room, and what would that space look like if it was optimal, if I had everything I needed in my physical bubble? The bubble zone is an amazing tool that we use in therapy to help people's nervous systems change. So they imagine a bubble of comfort, of optimal environment, of smells and scents and objects and things that provide a sense of soothing. So imagine that when you leave your house. Think about how you want to go into your classroom. You want to have a certain energy. When was the last time you had that energy? Imagine it. As you imagine it, your body will actually mimic it. If you've never had it and you've always been a little bit activated, think of someone that is really regulated. Pick a character or a superhero. And it sounds juvenile, but it's not. It's an actual technique we use in adult therapy to help manipulate the nervous system. This is about you finding ways to get yourself into the state that you want. A really great tool is to put, and you can use this with your kids, you make a box out of tape, and we see these in all of the grocery stores. This is a great thing that you can do. Take that box, make it make that tape box shape. on the floor at the front of your door of your classroom. And you can do this exercise with your kids. And I would be doing this every day. I do it in my mind when I leave the house, when I go into a speaking engagement, or if I'm teaching, I do the same thing. What state do I want to be in? When did I have a really great performance, or give a great talk, or have a really positive experience when I felt my absolute best, my healthiest, my strongest, my most confident? I will picture one scene of my life that made me feel that way. As I imagine it, my entire physiology changes. And as you start to practice this, you will notice that your energy shifts, your posture shifts, you feel different. As you feel different, your children feel different, your students feel different. The people around you start to respond because their mirror neurons pick that up. So you place that box of tape, that square that you're going to make out of tape right before your door of your classroom. You step into that box and you imagine being exactly the state that you want to go through that day with if it was a perfect day. As you imagine it, you will notice things start to shift in your body. Your breathing will change, your posture, everything will open up. That's the state you want to walk in that door. You don't leave the box till you get in state. Then you walk into your classroom and everything's a different experience. You can teach your kids at any age how to do this, where you play this game, where you're training their nervous system. When you come into this classroom, we are intentional about the state that we're bringing into this place. You have them imagine a big win, one of their trophies, a best experience with a loved one, getting a new puppy, something that makes them happy and calm and optimistic or excited, but in a range that is supported. And as they come through that door, they are getting into state, because as you step in the box, this is your magic box. This is where you transform. This is how you teach kids that they can change their state and have control over their mental, emotional, physical state. So you practice it, they practice it. Every time they come into that classroom, they're getting in state when they come through that square on the floor. It's just a little trick that helps. Also, the thing that I would be doing is that if I was working with small children especially, this would be the time I'd be working with concepts of fast and slow. Everything in our world is fast. This experience that we're having in our nervous systems is fast, and it's furious, and it's getting people agitated. It is this like urgency that's being created, and kids are picking up on this. How you can help kids regulate is teaching them the concepts of fast and slow. And I would use animals, because we are built the same way with the same nervous systems as animals. So I would show pictures of like racing horses and gazelles and fast cheetahs, and we would notice what happens when an animal is running and is in that fight, flight, high activation state. And as we watch it, as you think about it, even in this moment, things start to elevate in your own system. Well, that's not the system that we want kids to be in, but we want them to be aware of that. What do you notice when you see that gazelle run away, that horse, those horses galloping? What do you notice in your own body? If we start training them on how to connect with their own physiology, they can change their state much faster. Here's the thing, you do that, and then you do the contrast where you have sleepy sloths and slow moving tortoises, and you have them look at animals that are moving in a slower, calmer, relaxed, lazy state. As you think about it, your nervous system changes in this moment. So how much easier is it for kids? You put those images, that footage on a screen for them, and you talk about slow. Look what you notice. Look how slow the breathing is on that sleeping animal. Look how slow that tortoise moves. It's like moving through mud. You don't even have to do it in gross motor skill, although you could, but it's actually more powerful to do it in your mind than it is to act it out in your body. So imagining and watching and looking at bringing awareness to their breath and the slowness of their movements. Ask your students, ask yourself, what do I notice in this moment? Your own physiology has changed. So we model and we mimic, and you can bring awareness to how we do that to one another. But if you bring awareness to how you walk into your classroom and the energy that you have, Create a bubble zone, create a character that you take on their energy, and it's the energy that you want to transpose into your kids. It sets the stage for a better experience. It's not perfect. Not everybody's going to be able to do this, and this is new learning for everybody. But if you went through this year and learned some of these techniques for helping to slow the nervous system, helping to regulate, helping to build resilience, in your stories this year and the things that you talked about were really from a different place, from a different groundedness, and had those concepts in place, your experience would be different and those students' experiences would be different. So I would be using those kind of practices as I went through this school year. In addition to whatever you're teaching, I would make sure that we're moving, but I would move as if we were pushing through mud. So there's resistance and there's slowness and there's expansiveness and there's breathing exercises that aren't about counting and aren't about changing the breath, but are imagining what it would be like to breathe like a different creature, what it would be like to breathe if the oxygen was just so saturated. There's so much that we can do, that we can play and trick the mind in, that is not being utilized, that will help all of you as you go through this time. The last thing I would do is when I would come home, I would also have a transition. So it might be ritual, but there is some science to essential oils. Any smells go straight into the amygdala, which is the emotional processing center of the brain, part of the limbic system. It also connects with fear. So I would mist aromatherapy or essential oils, or I would do white sage or sweetgrass. So they've actually shown that white sage can kill pathogens in the air. Well, whether it does or it doesn't really matter. It's the process, the ritual of being able to do something around your energy, around your body, to transition you from the chaos of your workplace as a teacher into your home environment, and have it be a switch that's different. Everybody coming home from work, regardless of your job, you need to have transition experiences that end your workday and give you a moment of pause and recenter and regroup before you go into your home life, because that's a different energy that you need for your home life as well. So everything needs to be in the state of balance. One of the questions I've had is, how, when we're activated, do we deal with kids that are activated? One of the best things that you can remember is that kids, especially, acting from an unconscious place, acting from a survival brain, acting from a real animal experience. Their frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet, so they're not reasoning. Their thoughts or their emotions are just reacting to whatever physical stimulus that they're getting from the inside of their bodies. It's a really confusing space at the best of times, let alone now. So if you have a kid that's reacting, one of the best things that you can do, feel your feet on the ground. Feel your butt in the chair. Really get into your body low. You could do some squats. You could go side to side on the back of your feet. You could feel the sides of your legs. Those are containment muscles. You could also imagine that you are this monk on a mountain with this incredibly patient energy, but that you're huge, that you're really unrockable. That experience can be supportive for changing your state, so you're better able, you have more room in your container to deal with their state. Also, what you can do, shrink them down in your imagination. So kids activate us and they trigger us when they're coming at us with this frenzied energy. Think of them in a way that provides empathy and reduces the proportion of the threat. Because really, if we're activated, it's because our nervous system is picking up a threat from another animal. We're all animals. So this is how we reduce it to that animal level. It really helps the rest of your brain be able to have some space to engage with them. So shrink them down. Because if you have a 10-year-old that's aggressive with you, or you have a 6-year-old that's having a tantrum, shrink them down even more. Imagine that they are 2 inches tall. If they're 2 inches tall and their voices are tiny and they're flailing about and they're little, we feel sorry for them, but we're not impacted by them in the same way. If you have a kid that consistently is a challenge for you every day, you're going to want to go into that environment. Shrink them down, turn the volume down on their voice, make their face a cartoon character. They're just little animals. that are feeling caged and confused. So that will provide empathy. It will also reduce the amount of impact that your nervous system is perceiving that they have on you, because it's about the perception of threat, whether it's real or not. So shrink them down, change what they're wearing, change how their face moves, make something comical about it. If you lose your sense of humor, you're not going to make it through the year. Everything can be ridiculous, even in the middle of a pandemic, and really your kids depend on you to find humor in just about any situation right now. It is healing. It is also regulating, because laughter, just like rhythm, so drumming, bouncing, laughter, it all stimulates the vagus nerve, which connects to the gut brain axis and helps to regulate and calm. So use those things in different sequences as you can. In addition to shrinking them down and making yourself bigger, you can also find ways to have empathy. If you were being attacked, if a dog was baring its teeth at you, but you knew that dog had been lost in the woods and was frightened and afraid for half its life, or if it came from an abused situation, or if it was abandoned and this dog was cowering in the cage or bolting at the cage, you might feel activated from it. But if you know the context that it's coming from, you have empathy. We have so much patience with animals and rehabilitating animals that are afraid. We will sit with them. And we don't have that luxury with school. I understand that we don't have all of that time and space, but the perception and the mindset of that will help you engage with them differently. These are little animals that are in cages that are afraid. And if all your kids that were acting out like that, if you pictured them like caged baby animals that just needed more love, more patience, more resources, your perceptions of their threat to you help you stay calmer in the moment when you're dealing with them. Again, none of these things change reality. The reality is reality. Stress in itself is not bad. It's how we perceive stress that changes the impact and makes it toxic to our body. Stress is actually good for us. We cannot build resilience without stressful situations. So go into this year thinking about ways that you can actively build your own resilience, as if you were taking your brain to the gym. Your workplace is the gym every day that you're going into boot camp with. And how can you help to template and model, which is a huge responsibility, but it's essential, that you're modeling resilience building and the ability to regulate through some of these tricks and tools along the way. You're modeling resilience so that they can build resilience. So change your focus this year. It's not about survival. It's about creating optimal learning that's the best for everybody. It's about manipulating mindset, manipulating nervous systems to be calm and regulated, and using elements of nature to help us do that, because nature does it without being told how to do it. So use some of those things. Place boxes of masking tape on the floor and help kids learn how to change their state. It's invaluable to teach it now. Shrink anything that causes you activation in your mind down. Change its shape. Make yourself bigger so that it's like a little ping on the side of the glass rather than something that's really shaking you up. The bigger you imagine yourself being, you magically feel like you have more room in your container to deal and cope with what's going on in the world today and what's going on with these kids. So try these things, play with them, be playful. Of all things, we need lightheartedness and optimism and joy and giggles. So as important as it is that we have structure and stability, and that we're teaching these children because they need to learn and they need to be connected, we also need to remember that relationships are built when we're in safe spaces, when we feel calm, when we feel like we can trust one another, and we can't do that if we're not regulated. So the biggest focus of this year for all teachers and all students and all parents is, how can I be more calm and regulated and experience this and grow in this area so that all of these children can learn this from me, so we can get through this year not just in survival, but we're actually better for it than we started out. If you have any questions, I can answer questions specifically about what's going on in your schools and your experience, and I can help through webinars and online workshops to work with your team and with you individually and with individual case representations. If you have specific incidents that you need some help and support with, let me know, because sometimes it doesn't work on our own. We need other nervous systems to template off of. Spend time with people that are really grounded and really healthy and really positive. Get support when you need it. Don't do too much. In fact, do less. Take impeccable care of yourself, because we all need you to be the people that you came into this profession with the intention that you came to change the world one little brain at a time. And all these little brains are stirred up and feeling unsafe. So let's find ways to make life feel normal and safe and optimal, so that they can learn and grow and come out of this even better than they went into it, just like we all want to be. So try these things out. Take good care